Welcome back, listeners and watchers, to another crazy episode of Relative Perspective. I'm your host, Steven. We're cruising right along, guys. It feels just like yesterday that we did episode number 1, and we are already on number 4. That is freaking amazing. Okay, let's get into it. Tonight, we're going to talk about the scary and infamous doppelgangers. If you hadn't heard that term before, let me give you a quick rundown on how crazy this stuff is. A doppelganger is basically your spiritual body double, your twin. He or she is the mirror image of yourself out there walking around, possibly masquerading as you. Scary thought, right? Doppelgangers have been haunting humans for centuries, popping up in folklore tales, literature, and some truly terrifying first-hand encounters. But we will definitely get into that, so stay tuned. Okay, I have to warn you guys, my dogs are in the background. You'll probably hear some whining and stuff because they like me to give them all of my attention. So if y'all hear some whining and crying in the background, oh, there she goes. You hear that? Come here. Come on, Luigi. Up, up. Look, I want to introduce you to, look. Okay, this is one of them. This is Rosie. That's my baby girl. That's one of them. And then I got another one. Anyways, all right, sorry about that. Back to the show. The word doppelganger comes from Germany. It literally means double walker, and the idea is there's another you somewhere out there, but not quite you. Some say that it's a harbinger of doom, a trickster spirit, or something science just can't explain. In tonight's episode, we're going to explain exactly what a doppelganger is, where they come from, and most importantly, we're going to delve into some true stories that might just make your skin crawl and double check your reflection in the mirror. So sit back, dim the lights, get some popcorn, and let's go down this unbelievable rabbit hole together. Let's start with some possible origins of this thing. The concept of the doppelganger isn't new. It's almost as old as time itself. In Norse mythology, there's the Vardoger, a kind of spiritual double that arrives before you do. It's creating a sense of deja vu in reverse, where witnesses believe they've seen or heard the person before they actually arrive. That would freaking flip my wife out. She can barely stand just one of me, much less two. Hopefully the one of me that arrives first is nicer than the other one. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, sorry, baby. I had to throw that in there. Okay, back to the doppelganger. In ancient Egypt, the Ka was a person's spiritual double, tied to their life force. The Ka was believed to be a part of a person's being that survived after death and needed food, drink, or other offerings to maintain its existence. But it's in European folklore, especially German tales, where the doppelganger gets its sinister reputation. People believe that seeing their double was a curse. In some cases, it could have even meant a death omen. Just imagine if you were the one spotting your double. You might just be the unlucky one. Okay, let's fast forward to the 18th and 19th century where doppelgangers start showing up in literature. Think Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Edgar Allan Poe's William Wilson, where a man is tormented by his identical shadow self. But this isn't just fiction. People have been reporting doppelganger sightings for centuries, and some of these stories are so well documented they'll give you chills. Before we dive into the true tales, let's consider the theories. Are doppelgangers ghosts? Time slips, parallel universe glitches, or maybe just our brain playing tricks? Psychologists call it a Capgras delusion, when someone believes a loved one has been replaced by an imposter. But what if it's not a delusion? What if something's really out there wearing your face? Scary as hell, isn't it? Okay, let's travel back to the 16th century to the reign of Catherine de' Medici. She was a powerful queen consort of France. Catherine was no stranger to the occult. She was rumored to dabble in astrology and even poison making. But one story definitely stands out. According to historical accounts, one day Catherine was walking through the Louvre when her attendants froze in terror. There, ahead of her, was, well, her. A woman identical to the queen, dressed in her clothes, gliding silently through the halls. The figure didn't speak. It just moved, mirroring Catherine's every step, until it vanished around the corner. The Queen demanded answers, but no one could explain it. Days later, Catherine fell ill, and though she survived the bout, the sighting stuck with her for her whole life. In French folklore, seeing your double was a sign of impending doom. And sure enough, Catherine's life was plagued with tragedy, losing her husband and several children. Was it a warning, a spirit, or something even darker? This isn't the only royal doppelganger tale, but it's one of the earliest recorded. And it sets the tone for what's to come. Because doppelgangers don't just haunt queens, they show up in everyday life as well. Would you hush? I'm trying to do a show, will you? Hush. It's hard to do a show and pet two dogs at the same time, but I'm going to do my best. All right, here we go. Now let's jump to 1845 to a girls' boarding school in Latvia called Pensionnat Nieuwelk. This story comes from a teacher named Emily Sanger, a 32-year-old French woman with a spotless reputation, except for one problem. Her doppelganger wouldn't leave her alone. According to eyewitnesses, and there were dozens of them, Emily's double would appear out of nowhere. One day, while she was writing on a chalkboard, her exact duplicate appeared beside her, mimicking her every move. The students saw it clear as day, two Emilys standing side by side. One was real, one was, well, something else. Another time, Emily was tending to a garden outside while her double sat calmly in a classroom, visible to 13 girls who later swore to it. The weirdest part, Emily herself never saw her double, but she'd feel weak or drained whenever it appeared, like it was siphoning her energy. The school couldn't handle the chaos. Parents would pull their kids out of school, and Emily was fired. She reportedly moved from job to job, a total of 16 jobs in 19 years. Her doppelganger followed her like a curse. This case was well documented by the author Robert Dale Owen, the French astronomer Camille Flammarion, and Russian parapsychologist Alexander Aksakov. I can't believe I got through those. And from one direct witness, Julie de Goldenstube. Skeptics say it was mass hysteria, but how do you explain dozens of people seeing the same thing over and over? Was Emily haunted, or was her double a projection of her own soul? Let's put a pin in that question as we move to our next true encounter. Okay, this is a really freaky one. In 1905 in England, where Sir Frederick Carney Roche served as a member of Parliament. Well, on a very important day, the Parliament was holding a debate, and Sir Frederick was expected to attend, but he could barely get out of bed due to a horrible case of the flu. As the day went on, the members of Parliament began their debate, not knowing of Sir Frederick's condition. One of his colleagues, Sir Gilbert Parker, actually noticed Sir Frederick sitting in a chair that didn't belong to him. Gilbert also noticed that Roche didn't quite look himself. His clothes were tattered, his face was pale as a ghost, and he seemed to be staring straight through everyone with a grim look on his face. Gilbert even tried to get Roche's attention, but he sat there expressionless. Gilbert began paying more attention to the debate for a minute and glanced back to find Roche had disappeared. He was nowhere to be seen. He thought it strange because he knew he would have noticed Roche leaving, but he brushed it off. Gilbert wasn't the only one that saw Sir Frederick that day. They even asked the doorkeeper if they saw Sir Frederick leave, and the doorkeeper never saw him enter or leave. Later that day, Gilbert visits Sir Frederick at his home, and he noticed that Sir Frederick was sick in bed. Gilbert inquired as to why he decided to go to the proceedings, feeling as bad as he did, and Sir Frederick, with a look of shock, replied that he had not even stepped foot outside, that he had been in bed all day. Okay, let's head to Russia. Catherine the Great, the feared empress of Russia, faced her doppelganger in the final days of her reign. One evening in November 1796, servants rushed to her chambers in the Winter Palace, scared out of their minds. They claimed to have seen her seated on the throne in the Grand Hall, but Catherine had been resting in bed the whole day. Skeptical but curious, she rose and followed them. There, illuminated by flickering candlelight, sat her exact likeness. The same regal posture, the same steely eyes, draped in her imperial robes. Furious, Catherine ordered her guards to fire on the figure, but the bullets passed right through her, striking the wall behind the figure. As soon as the first shot went off, the apparition vanished. Here's where it gets really weird. 2 days later, on November 17th, Catherine suffered a stroke and died. Her throne was left empty. Her double's appearance etched into the palace legend as an omen of her end. Okay, I'm sure y'all have all heard of this guy. Even U.S. presidents aren't immune to doppelgangers. On the night of Abraham Lincoln's election in 1860, Lincoln was resting at home in Springfield, Illinois. He glanced into the mirror and saw something that stopped him cold. Two faces staring back at him. One was his own, clear and healthy. The other was pale, ghostly, and almost corpse-like, superimposed over his first image. Lincoln told his wife Mary Todd about it. She freaked out, interpreting it as a sign. The healthy face meant he'd survive his first term, but the deathly one meant he wouldn't make it through a second. Lincoln brushed it off as a trick of light, but the vision stuck with him. He saw it again at least once more. We all know how this ends. Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, early in his second term. Was this a doppelganger in the classic sense, or some kind of premonition? Mirrors have long been tied to the supernatural. Some say they've even been tied to portals. So maybe Lincoln was able to see his own fate. Either way, it's a story that lingered in American history, and it's not the last time a doppelganger crosses paths with someone famous. Okay, let's jump into our next one. Our next encounter is about the poet Percy Shelley. He was married to Mary Shelley, the Frankenstein author. Percy was a dreamer, a visionary, and apparently a magnet for the weird. In 1822, shortly before his death, he told Mary he'd seen his doppelganger. He was in Italy, walking near the Gulf of Spezia, when he encountered a figure cloaked in shadow. As it approached, he realized it was him. His face, his build, staring back at him with hollow eyes. The figure spoke, asking, "How long do you mean to be content?" Then it vanished. Percy was shaken, and Mary later wrote that he had been plagued by visions like this before. Weeks later, Percy drowned in a boating accident off that same coast where he saw that apparition. His friends said he'd been reckless, almost like he was drawn to the sea. In folklore, doppelganger's appearance often signals death, and Percy's case fits that pattern to a T. Was it a warning he ignored, or something pulling him towards his end? Okay, let's bring this into the 21st. What are you doing?
Where's your camera?
Right there. Give me a kiss.
Ew.
Okay, sorry, y'all.
Oh, bro, I gotta play Minecraft.
Bruh, why don't you let me finish the video, and then I'll let you play Minecraft. I'm almost done, okay? All right. Love you. Bye. Anyways, all right, let's get back into it. In the 21st century, doppelganger stories aren't just old legends. They're still happening today. I scoured Reddit and the web for recent accounts, and trust me, they are out there. What are you looking at? Stop. One user called Scubbykins posted, "As I was walking down my hallway, I saw my husband walking away from me. Said hi, and there was no response. He then entered the bedroom and then turned to the left. It freaked me out because there was a wall there. I continued to follow him to ask him what he was doing, and as soon as I entered the bedroom, he was gone. I was dumbfounded. I then began calling his name, and I heard him responding from upstairs. There was no way he could have went upstairs from that part of the house." Okay, here's another one from Runs Like a Girl. She wrote, "Two friends and I went to stay the night at a haunted hotel in Chicago. I slept in one bed and my two friends slept in the other one. In the morning, I woke up without any issues, or so I thought. I asked my friends if they encountered anything throughout the night, and I noticed one of my friends being very, very quiet. I asked her what was wrong, and she replied, nothing. I think it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. That's how most of us that had scary encounters try to rationalize what had happened. After a lot of begging and pleading with her to tell us what she'd seen, she finally broke down and told us. As my friend was sleeping, something startled her, and she shot up out of bed. She looked at the window and noticed me standing there, looking at the moonlit night. She asked me what I was doing, and she said I just looked at her with a blank stare. This is where it gets really creepy. As she was about to ask again what I was doing just standing there, she looked at my bed and realized I was still there, sound asleep. Not knowing what the hell was going on, she glanced back at the window and the other me vanished in thin air. Okay, here's one from at Echoes of Me that was reported on Paranormal Forum and was picked up by a few news outlets. A woman in New York, Jane R., was shopping when strangers kept approaching her, calling her Lisa, and asking why she was back in town. Turns out this Lisa was her spitting image, a woman who'd lived there years before and died in a car crash. Jane tracked down photos, and the resemblance was uncanny. She moved away shortly after, convinced something was mimicking her. These stories echo the old ones, doubles appearing where they shouldn't, sometimes silent, sometimes interactive. Are they spirits, glitches, or just coincidence? Science says everyone has about 7 lookalikes in the world, but what if some of these aren't flesh and blood? Let's go ahead and hear of some true encounters from people who lived them.
Story time. And yes, I'm driving because this mess just happened this morning and I am still trying to process what the heck I just saw. My husband, he goes to work earlier than myself, and most of the time I work from home anyway, but I'm going to the office today. But my husband, he is normally out the house at 5:30, but this morning he forgot his wallet, so he returned at 6 o'clock, 6:15. And, I spoke to him. I went in the bathroom with him and talked to him because I was trying to figure out why he was there. He gave me his kiss and he left. I got back into bed because I still had an hour before I needed to be up. I get back into bed. Soon as I doze off, I feel a kiss on the forehead the exact same way that my husband gives me a kiss every single day before he goes to work. I wake up, it's my husband, and he's walking away going to the bathroom. And I'm like, hey, you're back again? But he didn't answer me, and I'm like, I might as well get up anyway because I need to get dressed. But he doesn't respond to me, and he just keeps walking to the bathroom, and it's really, really odd for him to do something like that. So, of course, I get annoyed, and I follow him into the bathroom. But when I get into the bathroom, there is no husband there. And my mind is freaking blown. I just saw a doppelganger or whatever the heck you want to call it. But that was definitely supposed to be my husband. It gave me a kiss. I felt it, and I saw the back of him. He wore the same uniform that my husband wears to work, and he walked into the bathroom. I followed, but when I got into the bathroom, there was no one there.
This man is about to experience a doppelganger of his daughter, and it's not going to go down how you think it is. Check it out.
No, that was freezing. Yeah. Yeah, she got them out of the freezer earlier for you. She's put them in the fridge. Prawns don't take long to defrost anyway. Have we decided what prawn dish you're going to mess up? Ellie! Fridge! Freezing! Freezing me that way, freezing me this way. Bloody hell.
Dad, who are you talking to?
Fuck! You!
Why did you keep showing the name?
Are you fucking...
Okay, story time. So I am completely shook because this morning, I guess for the very first time, I have experienced or came in contact with what they call a doppelganger of my son, my oldest son. So I work from home. So I'm working, I hear a knock on my door, my bedroom door. And I open the door, and it's my son standing there with his backpack on, like ready to go to school. And he's like, Mom, can I get that Marines envelope that you got in the mail? And I was like, that you said you were not interested. He's like, oh, now I am. So I turned around to go get the envelope for him, and now that I think of it, he never walked into my room. He just stood on this doorway, staring at me. I didn't think of nothing of it at the moment. But then I text my son. I gave him the envelope. And I'm like, here you go. And then he's like, thanks, Mom. I'm like, you're welcome. And then he's still standing there, so I'm like, well, have a good day at school. And he just looks at me, he's like, I will. Then turns around and walks away. So I close the door, come back to, I continue to work or whatnot. Then it's like hours later, I text my son, and I'm like, hey, so did you end up filling out that Marines paperwork? And he's like, Mom, I told you I'm not doing that. Then I'm like, then why would you come ask me for the envelope in the morning before you went to school? So then he's like, I never went to your room before I went to school. Then I was like, yes, you did. You asked me for that Marines envelope when I gave it to you, and you took it out of my hands and left. He said, Mom, I never went to your room. So then I'm feeling crazy, right? Or my son thinks I'm crazy. He probably did think I was crazy or something. The other thing that then after rethinking the whole scenario, I realized that I was like, wait a minute. Anytime that my son comes to my room, he comes to get anything from me, he always walks all the way into my room. He never just stands in the doorway. And that thing in the morning just stood on the doorway. Never walked in. I realized it never walked in. Now I'm thinking, I was like, did it not walk in because I didn't welcome it in? Or I don't know. I'm still shook by this whole situation that happened this morning, and my son is probably still thinking I'm losing my shit. I don't know. I don't know if these things are dangerous. I don't know, but why do these things happen?
So what do we make of all this? It seems like doppelgangers have been with us forever. Queens, poets, presidents, and everyday folks like you and me. I want you to think very hard and ask yourself if there has been anyone saying that they have seen you someplace that you know you've never been, or have heard you calling their names when you know you were nowhere around. These things are possibly warnings, mimics, mysteries that we can't even fathom. Maybe they're tied to us at a deeper level than even mainstream science can explain. Maybe they're just quantum echoes, bleeding through from another reality. Or maybe they're just in our minds, reflecting our deepest fears right back at us. One thing is clear, the stories keep coming. Next time you catch a stranger staring a little too long, or spot yourself in a crowd where you shouldn't be, ask yourself, is it just a trick of the light? Or is your double out there walking in the shadows? Okay, guys, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got your own doppelganger story or any other strange encounters, go ahead and hit us up on X at relativeperspective_paranormal confessions, and on Facebook, we use the same name for both. Or just email me at relativeperspective76@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story, and maybe we can interview you. Don't forget to hammer down on the like button and help me. The bet that me and my wife have, she's going nuts with this. I need 1,000 subscribers in the next 4 or 5 months. Please don't let her win this bet. Please. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled and maybe avoid mirrors after dark. I'll see you beyond the veil. God bless you. Love you. Good night.